each scene has its own block or you know, question or difficulty, and we use some scenes as sort of template scenes. So for example, yesterday we were doing the scene from The Insider, and that's a real template scene for a scene that starts heavy conflict and then dissipates into conversation. And so I'll be coaching an actor and then I'll go, well, it's the scene from The Insider, and they go, oh yeah, right. And so we have a whole bunch of scenes like that. Like The Notebook is a scene where the objective is to not attain anything. So it's a specific iconic idea. So her objective is to not make a decision. So I go, it's The Notebook. You're doing an audition and I go, it's The Notebook, right? And so we have these template scenes. I'm sure you guys can come up with a whole bunch of them. This is a great example of a scene that when you read it on the page, because it's Harold Pinter, you go, what is happening? Like it just seems absolutely obtuse, like empty. And it's seemingly difficult to figure out what the objectives are. So, and yet the structure is so ridiculously clear that you can actually do your analysis starting with structure and then find the story. And so to me, that's The French Lieutenant's Woman. So let's discuss The French Lieutenant's Woman. The point of view of the book was a retelling of the era of the Bronte books, but from a feminist point of view. And it was the early 70s. We were in the you know, not, I guess, earlier stages of the hyperfeminist movement, which is excellent. And basically, The French Lieutenant's Woman was these Bronte novels and like Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre and all that stuff. It's really, though written by a woman, come from a male perspective. And let's look at a female perspective at the time. So the idea is there's this woman who's known as the tragedy. And she is basically scarleted, like the scarlet letter A, you know, she's, they know her as the French Lieutenant's whore, but in company, good company, you call her the French Lieutenant's woman. This woman falls in love with this French lieutenant who's stationed in her town. She falls for him and they have a torrid affair. And then instead of leaving his wife, he breaks her heart and goes back to France and she's destroyed. But now she's this woman who's untouchable because she's had affairs and she's dirty and no woman went around her in proper society. So she's called the tragedy. And that was endemic of the times. So then this young man who's a nobleman and an intellect, he discovers this and he's fiancé to this other woman. He discovers this and this very iconic, very famous scene that's been copied and oops, there you go, and played out in all sorts of like in parodies and stuff, is a scene where he runs down the breakwater and he sees her and she turns. This is the woman he's marrying.
Without impropriety.
Clarence is the young man.
Very well. Good Lord. What on earth is she doing?
Oh, it's poor tragedy.
Tragedy?
Bushmen have a grosser name for her.
What?
They call her the French Lieutenant's Woman.
Do they?
Please come.
I must speak to her. She could fall.
She won't think. She's mad.
It's dangerous. Will you stay there?
Charles! Charles!
Madam! Madam! Madam, forgive me. I'm alarmed for your safety. Come back! Madam!
Oof, iconic, fabulous. Have you all seen that before? Has anyone seen that before? Madam, and her hood, and she turns, and this young Meryl Streep looks at him, and he's struck with love. Oh, it's great. So in the novel, Charles falls in love with Sarah and can't stop thinking about her, and basically puts his life in peril because she's the tragedy and things. And eventually, he she keeps saying no to him. No, 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 no. I can't be with you. I can't be with you. And she's like elusive, but she falls in love with him too. And she breaks, and they end up making love in Exeter. And in Exeter, they make love in this little inn. And at that point, he discovers that she's a virgin and that she would never was the French lieutenant's whore. And the point is that she fell in love with the French lieutenant, but gave her heart to him, but never gave herself to him. And when he broke her heart, she was so broken in heartbreak that she when attacked with these misconceptions and nasty rumors and stuff, she just took it and took on the moniker. So she's the French lieutenant's whore, never actually having been the French lieutenant's whore. And that's just, so the misogyny of the time was so brutal that a woman who's even innocent would still be branded, with the scarlet letter. So they fall in love and they have this moment. And then he decides he's going to give up his whole life and he's going to break with the fiance and he's going to marry her because he loves her so much he should go with her heart. But she realizes that it's going to destroy his life, that he's not going to be able to continue his nobility and his intellectuality. And so because she loves him so much, she disappears. And what happens is he goes mad. He goes mad with love and ends up breaking with the fiance, breaking his whole life, and spends years trying to find her. And in that time, she's changed her name. She's changed her profession. She's become like basically a nanny. She lives with this wealthy family and she's done okay for herself. And then he finally finds her and in the end comes to her enraged at her having broken his heart. And she says to, please forgive me. Please forgive me. I needed my freedom. And they end up being together. And the film, that story, French Lieutenant's Woman, is about, prejudice, misogyny, and freedom. Like you're allowed to have your freedom. And they fall in love and there's a romantic ending. Yeah. So that's the movie. That's the story, The French Lieutenant's Woman. Right, good. They hand that novel to Harold Pinter, who's of course one of the great writer directors of all time. And he reads it and goes, oh, come on. Like, come on. And this is in 1981. So now if it's the second wave of feminism, we're also at the tail end of the sexual revolution, and we're starting to see a little bit of the damage that it does. So he says, yeah, those days were misogynistic and wrong, and it's great that we've moved past them. But we don't live in an era of perfection and Valhalla. With freedom comes a cost, and with freedom comes a whole different kind of heartbreak. And so he's like, I'm not going to make The French Lieutenant's Woman. I'm going to make a movie about us making The French Lieutenant's Woman. And so he writes a script where there's two stories. There's the story of Mike and Anna, the actors who are playing Charles and Sarah, the characters. And the movie becomes this meta confusion, which is wicked. So what happens is Mike, played by Jeremy Irons, is a well-known Olivier Award-winning stage actor, dashing thespian who's well-rehearsed and amazing at his craft. And in order to sell the movie to America, they hire the up-and-coming new starlet who has a couple of Oscars and everybody thinks is great, but is not necessarily like the perfect actor. And then they hire Jeremy Irons to play Mike and Meryl Streep to play Anna, which of course that's who they are. And then what happens is Mike ends up falling in love with Anna, who's a married woman. And as they're playing Charles and Sarah, he actually falls in love with her and they end up having an affair in Exeter. And they end up, he ends up leaving his girlfriend for her and she's not sure. And at the end of the movie, she goes back to her husband and breaks his heart. And the end of the movie is him like brokenhearted and confused. So you've got the movie where they end up in love, but you get the facts, which is they end up brokenhearted because in the end, a little too much freedom can create a whole bunch of havoc. And so the movie becomes about not misogyny versus freedom, but freedom versus the cost of freedom. And what's the best, which I will show you soon, is the last moments of the film are him going to look for her at the wrap party and he can't find her and he hears her car leaving and he runs to the window, bursts the windows open and yells out as loud as he can, Sarah! And then realizes that's not her name, that's her character's name. And he's all confused. What am I doing with my life and who am I in love with? And he sits down and the end of the film is like 3 minutes of him smoking a cigarette. And that's the end of the film. So Harold Pinter writes this meta thing about, yeah, okay, this book was, yes, but let's look a little deeper at what freedom can actually do. You see? Now, the pivot scene, I think the best scene in the film is the scene where they first meet and they're rehearsing a scene from the film. And he wants to rehearse and she clearly doesn't. And the question is why? And then how does it end up? So, present, Mike and Anna rehearsing, holding scripts.
Miss Woodruff?
Just a minute, I've lost the place.
She turns pages of script. So Miss Woodruff is the character that Anna is playing, Sarah Woodruff, right? So he's doing a line from the script, Miss Woodruff. And she goes, just a minute, I've lost my place. Now, she's American and then plays a British accent, right? And he's actually English. Then Mike says,
I suddenly see you. You've got your coat caught in brambles. I see you, then you see me. We look at each other and then we say, and then I say, Miss Woodruff.
All right.
Right. I see you. Get your coat caught in the bramble.
She mimes her coat being caught in brambles.
Right. Now I'm looking at you. You see me. Look at me.
I am.
Miss Woodruff.
I'm looking at you.
Yes, but now you come towards me to pass me. It's like a narrow path, muddy.
She walks towards him.
You slip in the mud.
Whoops.
She falls. Have you seen this before, Tony? Excellent. She falls. He says,
beautiful. Now I have to help you up.
Let's start over again.
And she goes back to the chair.
I've got my coat caught in the brambles. Suddenly you see me, then I see you.
Miss Woodruff.
She mimes her coat caught in the brambles, tugs at it, walks along the carpet towards him. She steps aside. She moves swiftly to pass him and she slips. She falls to her knees. He bends to help her up. Now here comes the moment. She looks up at him. He stops a moment looking down, and then he gently lifts her. And with his hand on her elbow, he leads her towards the window.
I dread to think, Miss Woodruff, what would happen if you should one day turn your ankle in a place like this?
She is silent, looking down. He looks down at her face, her mouth.
I must go back.
Will you permit me to say something first? I know I am a stranger to you, but...
Sharp cut to Sarah turning sharply, a branch snapping, undercliff day, men's low voices. Charles is standing. Sarah moving swiftly over the grass and disappearing behind the thicket of gorse. The voices come nearer. Suddenly a dog and two men appear in the undergrowth. The dog barks. The men stare at Charles and then withdraw hurriedly. Racing steps, shrill whistle. The dog turns and disappears after the men. Silence. That's the scene. Right. Anybody, what's going on? Like if you read that script, it's Harold Pinter, which means it's so oddly empty and elusive. And you go, wait, all the answers are in there. There's a pivot word, which you guys incorrectly played, which is brilliant. But what is going on in that? What are the objectives? It's wild. You read it, you kind of go, if you read that, having never read anything else, you go, what is this? Like, I'm not doing this for my demo. Then you look at Jeremy Irons and Meryl Streep do it and you go, oh my gosh, it's like one of the greatest scenes of all time because it's so empty on the page. Right. I shall highlight something, which is, or why don't you guys try to answer it? Where's the 3-act structure? Because the 3-act structure is ridiculously obvious if you stop and think about it. There's rehearsal number 1, where she says, let's start over again. Miss Woodruff, just a minute, I've lost my place. All right, Miss Woodruff, you slip in the mud, whoops, and she falls. And the she falls, now I have to help you up. Let's start over again, back to the chair. Then they start again, act 2. All right, let's try this again. I get myself, Miss Woodruff. And then they start writing the dialogue. And then act 3 is the performance. So it goes rehearsal, rehearsal, performance. That's act 1, act 2, act 3. Where I think the pivot word, and it's very Harold Pinter to not give you anything, you've got to figure it out, is the word beautiful. Because Miss Woodruff, just a minute, I've lost my place. She's lost her place. Like they're doing, it's like a 1-page scene, you know. So he's like, I suddenly see you. He's coaching you. You've got your coat on the brambles. I see you. Then you see me. We look at each other. And then I say, Miss Woodruff. And she goes, all right. Which is, wait till you hear how Meryl Streep does that. But like, all right, great. Yeah, okay. Right. I see you, get your coat caught in the bramble. He's sort of like, can we rehearse this thing, right? So she mimes her coat being caught in a bramble. And he's like, right, now I'm looking at you, beat, 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 beat. There's a big, big space there. Harold Pinter puts that on purpose so that you then go, you see me, look at me. And she goes, I am. And he's like, okay. And then he goes, Miss Woodruff. She goes, I'm looking at you. He's like, no, that's the line. I'm supposed to say Miss Woodruff. She goes, he goes, I am. I'm Miss Woodruff. I'm looking at you. So she's getting herself and the character confused already. Yeah, he goes, yes, but now you come towards me to pass me. It's a narrow path. It's muddy. So she walks towards him. You slip in the mud, and she goes, whoops, like whoops, like whoops. So his beautiful. What is that? I'm gonna show you that the next line is, now I have to help you up.
Sarcasm. Oh, sorry.
Yes, Candace, that's right. No, you can unmute and say it. Yeah.
Oh,
Sarcasm. He's British.
Oh, Nilu said it as well. Yeah.
He's British, and beautiful is a absolutely sarcastic British word. Beautiful. And then he goes, now I have to help you up. Like he doesn't want to, because this actress is a pain in the ass. And she goes, let's start over again. And then she goes back to her chair. That's act 1. And then act 2 is she starts. Okay, fine. I'll play. I've got my coat caught in the brambles. Suddenly you see me, then I see you. So she's like, fine, I'll play. And then he goes, Miss Woodruff. But then this happens. She mimes her coat in the brambles, tugs at it along the carpet. She steps aside, she falls. She looks up at him. He stops a moment, looking down. And then he gently lifts her with his hand on her elbow. And then he leads her to the window. And then the dialogue starts. I dread to think, Miss Woodruff. She's silent, looking down. He looks down at her face, her mouth. I must go back. Will you permit me to say something first? I know I'm a stranger to you, but I have such feelings for you. I love you, is what he's about to say. And then woof, 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 and she runs away. That's act 3. So rehearsal 1 goes like shit. Rehearsal 2 goes amazingly well. And in the performance, she runs away. So let's start with the performance. What's his objective and her objective in the performance? And what are the 2 conversations? The objective of Charles, the character, not Mike, the actor, but Charles, the character, his conversation is love. I'm falling for you. I need to know you. I'm falling in love with you. I need to express my passion for you. And so he's there to say, in the forest, in the brambles with Tragedy, the French lieutenant's woman, to say, I have great feelings for you and I don't really understand them. And what are we going to do about this or whatever, right? So his objective is to propose love. Her objective is protection, self-protection and fear, but she needs to protect him from herself, because if she capitulates to being with him, she's going to destroy his reputation. So it's a love and fear conversations, but very specifically, I think it's love and protection. I need to protect you and also need to protect my heart. So Sarah's is, despite the fact that she loves him, we know that Sarah falls in love with Charles and they end up together in the end of the story. And despite the fact that Charles, though he loves her, knows that this is crazy, going after the French lieutenant's whore. He doesn't know she's a virgin at this point, and loving her and destroying his life, right? He should be protecting himself. So you've got the A over B, B over A, love over fear, fear over love, right? It's very simple. In the movie that they're making, in the novel, The French Lieutenant's Woman, it's love over fear, fear over love, or love over protection, protection over love, or passion over protection, protection over passion. Is probably how I would say it. Everyone catch that? Not that difficult? Right. Therefore, in Act 3, who wins?
Well, she wins.
She wins because she runs away. The dogs bark, it causes a reaction. We're all afraid. We all run away to our corners, right? And that's him losing the girl. And so in Act 2, he wins. Charles, the character, wins because Charles is able to say, Madam, I don't think you should be walking here on your own. You could turn an ankle. I need to tell you something. I love you. Like he's professing his love to her. And then she runs away, so he loses, right? So in the rehearsal in Act 2, Mike has to win, and Mike has to lose Act 1 and Act 3. So what's Mike's objective in the scene, in the rehearsal scene? Why is he rehearsing? And I go back to the backstory. The backstory is this extremely important, beautiful British film has been cast with some American starlet who, you know, may or may not be able to actually act. And he has nothing but disrespect and disdain for it when he knows 50 women from, you know, the west side of London who could have done this part. And he ends up giving his heart over to her and falling for her, right? So his objective is to get a good performance out of her. Yeah, maybe, yeah. In some ways, I think it's to figure out how he's going to possibly fall in love with her as a character. Like, how am I going to play I'm in love with this woman? So I need to rehearse with her to make sure that we can play this love. So his objective is love, despite the fact that he would like to protect himself from this woman who he just doesn't really like or have any respect for. So it's the same A's and B's. His act one, which is the rehearsal, is I have to act Miss Woodruff. I'm in love with you, and I got to find a way to be in love with this actress that I have no respect for, despite the fact that I really just don't want to have anything to do with her. And then in act two, he manages to fall in love with her, despite the fact that he doesn't really like her very much. And then in act three, in the performance, Charles loses her because even though he's in love with her. And so it's the exact same 3-act structure. Does everyone understand? Goes, Miss Woodruff, he's acting, just a minute, I've lost my place. Bang, there's a loss. Like, she's not really trying, you know? And he's like, okay, so I'm going to coach you. I suddenly see you, and I say, Miss Woodruff, that's what's happening. She goes, all right. And he goes, right, so let's do it. I see you, get your cook on the gramble. Right, now you're looking at me. And then he's like, okay, now you see me, you have to look at me. She goes, I am. He goes, Miss Woodruff, he starts to act. And she's like, I'm looking at you. So she's like, and he's like, yeah, no, I know, yes, I'm saying my line and you're supposed to react to my line. So he's, yes, but now you come towards me to pass me. It's a narrow, muddy path. You slip in the mud, and she goes, whoops. And he's like, beautiful. Now I have to help you up. And she goes, let's start all over again. So the whole thing falls completely apart, right? So she wins it. She sabotages the rehearsal. And she's not taking it seriously, and she's protecting herself from Mike. But let's go back. Ready? Love versus protection or self-protection. What now we understand Mike's is, I got to do my best to fall in love with this woman, even though I don't really have much time for her. What's her objective in conversations? It has to be the inverse. What's Sarah's objective? Sarah's objective is to push love away because it's too freaking dangerous to fall in love with him, even though she really, really wants him. What's Anna's objective? Anna's the actress playing Sarah. To remain emotionally cleaved. That's lovely. His is love over protection.
Protection over love.
And his Charles is love over protection. I love you, even though I should protect myself from you. Mike's is, I need to fall in love with you, even though I really should protect myself from your acting. So what's hers? Hers is the opposite. Protection over love. So she's pushing him away and sabotaging the rehearsal. But why?
She doesn't want to like him.
Boom! She thinks he's hot, Tenzing. That's exactly what it is. She's married. Yeah. And she's playing a scene with this ridiculously sexy British charming guy in the countryside in London for 6 weeks away from her husband. So she's, and it's the accent. It's so the accent. So she's like, I can't allow myself to fall for you. And the point of the film is that when we allow ourselves to blow across our boundaries and have no more boundaries, which is correct, because the boundaries that we had in the 18th and 19th century were ridiculously sexist and misogynistic to the point of, slavery of women. So it's right that we blew that up. But he's like, but with no boundaries comes no boundaries. And suddenly we're going to have this freedom to fuck everything up. And so in this scene, Charles needs to fall in love with Sarah. Mike needs to make sure that Charles is falling in love with Sarah, but then Mike crosses a line and accidentally falls in love with Anna. And Anna, who's trying not to fall in love with Mike, has to act the character of Sarah falling in love with Charles. So she looks up and lets it happen, and then they fall in love, and now they're fucked. So what happens is he's like, great. So she's like, okay, let me. So then she she takes over and she goes for it. And the question becomes like, and the question on the table was why? Like, why in the second act does Anna just flip her objective and go, okay, fine, I'll play. And the reason is because she has to make this movie with this guy, and it does have to be a good film. So over here, he actually falls in love with her. And then just when they're like, oh my God, they're going to be in love, we go back to the movie, which is the point in the movie where she goes, no, I can't, and runs away. Now, is that Sarah running from Charles, or is that Anna running away from Mike? Or is that Meryl running away from Jeremy? Isn't that brilliant? So the character statements become, his would be, you are the one I need to ensure my character becomes deeply and powerfully and immensely in love with. And when I play Charles, I have to make sure that Charles's soul just beats and it opens up for you. So I need to embrace and open you up and unveil you in some way, somehow, to figure out how to love you. Otherwise, this movie's gonna be a piece of shit. But the truth is I need to just like callous myself to you because you are clearly a pain in the ass, and I don't know if I can deal with you, right? And then hers would be, you are this pain in the ass danger to me, and I need to security wall, brace myself up against you, keep you out, shut you down, and not play your game and not rehearse the scene. Otherwise, I could actually let my guards down and fall for you. But the truth is your accent is making me tingle, and I want you on now. That's the thing. Right?
I suddenly see you. You've got your dress caught in the brambles. I see you. Then you see me. We look at each other, and then I say, Miss Woodruff.
All right.
Right. I see you. Get your coat caught in the brambles. Right. Now I'm looking at you. You see me. Miss Woodruff.
I'm looking at you.
But now you come towards me to pass me. It's a narrow path and it's muddy. You slip in the mud. And I help you up.
Let's just do it again, okay?
All right.
Let's do it again. I've got my dress caught in the brambles. Suddenly you see me. I see you.
Miss Woodruff. I dread to think, Miss Woodruff, what would happen if you should one day turn your ankle in a place like this.
I must go back.
Permit me to say something to you first. I know I am a stranger to you, but
Here we are in Act One, right? It's the top of Act One. They cut in a little bit late here, but they cut Act One. Look at that frame. You got that frame? Okay, good. That's the beginning of rehearsal number one. And now here's the beginning of rehearsal number two. So it's the exact same frame. So he actually, not only do they like have the Act One, Act Two, but they have, Act One, Act Two. Then this is his Miss Woodruff, his first Miss Woodruff. That's exactly the right frame for that. And then this is his second Miss Woodruff. So it's the exact same frame. And the actors have to completely shift it up. So there's these parallels. And the other one that you want to watch for the parallel is her walk. How she walks across this time compared to how she walks across that time is stunning. It's the exact same frame. It's the same shot. But it's the actor who's completely shifted her objective and her understanding of it, And I think, interestingly, is in the writing, he holds back the third act to when she runs away. And it's actually not correct because in the writing, interesting, it's Harold Pinter, he's a genius and all that, but she falls, Act One, let's start again. She falls, act 2, we're into act 3. So the shift should actually come on the fall. And the fall's done brilliantly if you look at it, because they match her fall to the fall in the woods. Watch. Isn't that great? So watch, let's go back to this. Ready?
I suddenly see you. You've got your dress caught in the brambles. I see you. Then you see me. We look at each other, and then I say, Miss Woodruff.
All right.
Like that's the best. That's the best use of the words "all right" ever. She's like, "All right," like I don't want to be here. I'm not really into it. Isn't that great? She just like just even look at him. All right, all right.
Right.
Why is she studying the script? She has 2 lines of dialogue.
I see you. Get your coat caught in the brambles.
Watch this. That's the worst acting ever. Meryl Streep has the award for the worst acting ever of somebody acting, which is classic because it's Meryl Streep. But look how bad her acting is.
Right.
It's like coquettish and silly. And so you're like, why is she doing that, this actress? Why is she playing that?
Now I'm looking at you. You see me,
See?
Miss Woodruff.
And look at his Miss Woodruff. It's devoid of any love. It's an empty line of dialogue.
I'm looking at you.
But now you come towards me to pass me. It's a narrow path and it's muddy.
Look at that walk. Look at that
You
walk.
slip in the mud.
He doesn't say beautiful. He just looks away. Instead of going, oh, beautiful, he's just like, oh, Jesus Christ. He looks at the script. Like, can we find another actress? And then
And I help you out.
Let's just do it again, okay?
All right.
that's the greatest moment in the whole scene. What's going on with her in that moment? I think she's not trying at all. This whoops, like she's hardly even trying to act at all. And then she's like, ow. So she's out of character. So she's not in character. She's just, unless she looks up like, I can't do this rehearsal. And she's sabotaging the rehearsal. And he's like, oh, Jesus, I don't know if I can act with her.
Help you out.
And then she refuses to let him touch her. And that's very important because act 1 to act 2 is like, don't touch me. Act 2 to act 3 is touch me. And then the end of the scene is don't touch me. And so she says,
Do it again, okay?
let's just do it again, okay? Yeah. But if you pay attention to that, that's a woman who's trying to shut down any potential romance. She's basically clearly wildly attracted to him and doing her best to not allow it to happen. Watch.
And I help you out.
Let's just do it again, okay?
All right.
Do it again.
If you pay attention to it, that's like, oh, that she likes him. And he misses the whole boat. And then you have this exceptionally beautiful filmmaking, which is end of act 1, right? She has her coffee, which is her inebriant. He has his cigarette, which is his inebriant. And God ordains there's going to be a change by the thunder. You hear that thunder? There's no thunder in the real world. The thunder comes in post because the director is like, we're going to put thunder in because the thunder accidentally happens to there's no real rain. The rain, it's a rain machine. They cause the thunder because it's God is like going to intervene now, the gods of love. You see that look he gave her? Now, this is the exact same frame. Exact same frame.
I've got my dress caught in the brambles. Suddenly you see me.
And then she makes her mistake. And her mistake is, okay, I have to act this scene because Anna has to be a good actress and play Sarah well. But the problem is that Sarah then Anna allows herself to actually like Mike. And there's a moment when she look at that. So look at this coquettish bullshit she plays over here, which is hilarious. That,
Right.
like terrible fucking acting. And then look at this moment as a comparison. You could even look at the frames to compare it.
I see you.
Now look at his.
Miss Woodruff.
So this, is that Charles falling in love with Sarah? Is that Mike playing Charles falling in love with Sarah? Is that Mike falling in love with Anna? Or is that Jeremy falling in love with Meryl? And you go, oh, freedom, freedom's so confusing. That's the whole point. It's genius. And then,
Woodruff.
The camera pushes in, because anytime you want to have a character really have a realization, push the camera in, because that means the audience is part of the realization. And now this realization is what? This is too dangerous for Sarah. She needs to get away from Charles. Or this is too dangerous for Anna. She needs to get away from Mike. And now look at the walk here. So as an actor, you have to just applaud this young genius actress just for her intentions in her walk, the character. Watch this.
It's a narrow path and it's muddy.
It's coquettish, silly, a little girlish, right? And now watch this walk. It's protective, demure, scared. And now they're in love, right?
I dread to think, Miss Woodruff, what would happen if you should one day turn your ankle in a place like this.
I must go back.
Permit me to say something to you first. I know I am a stranger to you, but
And then Saved by the Barks. So the thunder comes in. God has his Deus Ex Machina, his the gods step in to go, okay, they're going to fall in love. And then in the film, the gods step in to break the love.